Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Privacy Rules Meet the Member podcast. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Jodi Daniels from Red Clover Advisors, based in Atlanta, in the United States. Hello, Jodi.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you and to have you here. And Jodi, we know very little about Red Clover Advisors. That is a very fresh member of the Privacy Rules Alliance, and about you and your experience in data privacy, of course. So I would like to immediately start speaking about you and your experience and what Red Clover Advisor is and what you do in your daily practice.
Absolutely. So for starters, Red Clover Advisors is a privacy consultancy. And in our alliance, I am probably one of the few non-attorneys. So I think that's a really important distinction. We're all about working to help companies implement and operationalize and bring to life all these different privacy laws and rules that we're talking about. We try and make it as simple as possible and really get down to the practical people level. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is, but I'm really the arms and legs inside a company. I also serve as a fractional chief privacy officer, especially companies who don't have one. They might be a small or a mid-sized company, and I'll help them and serve in that capacity. And a little bit about myself. I got to the privacy world from marketing. So the second half of my career has been marketing and privacy. The first half was accounting and finance and strategy. I've worked at 4 major corporations, Deloitte, Home Depot, Cox Enterprises, which is a big media conglomerate, and then most recently at Bank of America. Red Clover Advisors has celebrated its 2-year anniversary just last week, and we're really excited to be here.
So happy birthday to
Thank you. Thank you.
And yes, that's a very impressive background. And of course, marketing is one of the sectors that have been hit more than others from the new regulation and the evolution of the data privacy sector. And starting from that, I would like to speak and to discuss with you on which are your main challenges that you face during your practice is not just related to marketing, but to the data privacy world. And not just in the US, but maybe internationally, if you had this kind of experience also.
Right. So I think most of it is the people side and getting people to understand a few things, I guess, to get people to understand what these privacy laws are and why they matter and why they have to take them seriously. Then they take them seriously, but they give them this amount of effort and time and resources to it. So those are, I think, some of the big challenges. And then those companies that are willing and embracing, it's also a bit hard to get the change through it. Marketing has absolutely been a big one that's been hit, right? Everyone wants to collect data forever. We want to use it in all different interesting, creative manners. You have some people trying to go outside and skirt and find different ways, which sort of defeats the whole point of what these laws are intended to do. And the premise that I really believe in is that privacy is just good business, and it's all about building trust. I'm trying to educate companies on there are these laws, they are a compliance factor. Ultimately, it's also all about the data you're getting and the relationship you have with the customer, and how is that built? Is it built upon a strong trust foundation, or something different? And I think that applies from a B2B standpoint and a B2C for companies, especially in the B2B market, who take this seriously. I firmly believe, at least for the next couple of years, they have a competitive edge. If you have multiple companies doing the same thing, if I'm a customer who cares about privacy, I'm going to go analyze all of them. The ones that don't, I'm going to chop them off.
Of course, and that's interesting also, because I think one of the main topics related to privacy is the use of resources and the costs that are related to the implementation of privacy. And many companies are afraid of that, but I think there is a good return on investment. I think maybe your experience can help on that.
Yeah, I really try and tie it back to sales as best as I can. I mean, is it a perfect connection? No. However, I have received a fair amount of clients because they've come in, they've received a contract. It says you must comply with X, Y, and Z from a privacy and security standpoint, and now they have to start complying. And if they don't, that's lost revenue. It's now becoming a driver because of sort of the cyclical relationships that GDPR is pushing down, and then other companies want to build strong privacy and security programs, and as a result, right, all these contracts are kind of flowing through, and companies want to do the right thing, which is good.
Yes, of course, that's true, and yes, and I think another thing that you are facing in this period is the incoming new regulation related to the United States, and in particular California. There is this new CCPA that, it's in many cases compared to what we have in Europe, that is the GDPR, and there's a very strong discussion. And I would like also to know how businesses in the United States are, which is the behavior of the businesses there related to the CCPA. Are they frightened?
Yeah. It's a big topic, and literally the call right before this one, a company said he's sort of in the middle. He works with a variety of different stakeholders, retailers and wholesalers and manufacturers, and then he's sort of a service provider. And he said, I'm kind of shocked that no one in his ecosystem has talked about California yet. No one. I did several webinars and podcasts in July. And in each of them, we took a poll, and it was about 50% that were first learning about CCPA. There's a massive disconnect, and from an education standpoint, people are kind of ignoring it. I think human nature, a little bit of fatigue. I did that GDPR thing. What's the CCPA? I did that already. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm a US focused only company. I didn't have to worry about GDPR, so I'm not as in tune. Oh, there's this new privacy law. I think there's actually a fair amount of that as well. And we have a big part of the procrastination happening over here. I keep trying to tell people you don't want to procrastinate the same way many did with GDPR, because that will be the end of fourth quarter, the end of the year, and the holiday season.
Yes.
That's not really how many people want to spend their holiday season. However, about 50% of people are not getting that message because they're still learning about it.
That's pretty impressive and unexpected, and it's really really interesting. And which are the main advice that you are giving in relation also to the implementation of this new regulation?
It's very similar to GDPR from a starting place, where you can do a gap analysis and understand what are the requirements and where are you. And the very first place you have to start is that data inventory. You cannot comply with any of these laws if you have no idea what data it is that you have. And we're taking a very practical approach to help me understand what kind of data do you collect, where do you use it, where do you share it. And what's important from a CCPA standpoint that's a little bit different from GDPR is the very specific call out regarding the sale of information. GDPR you can stop processing and things along those lines, but CCPA came on the heels of Facebook Cambridge Analytica, which means there's a very firm focus on the sale of data, letting me, the individual, be informed that you sell it, and I don't want to, so I get to press a button to help opt me out. Now, it sounds really simple on the outside, but at a company on the inside, that's very challenging. And what's unique is the definition of sell is not your typical, I give you $1, or you give me $1, I sell data. Selling can mean distributing, disclosing, and other valuable considerations. It's a very long, complex definition. It's longer than what I've just said. And companies have to evaluate, is what they're doing meet the definition of sale? And that's where a lot of the complexity right now is. But the very first place that companies need to start is that data inventory. Then they need to figure out the individual rights. Then they need to update their privacy notice, as well as ensure strong security measures.
And what in terms of responsibilities? Are there subject or position like the data protection officer that we have?
So that is a difference. GDPR is much more onerous and rigorous and very specific criteria. CCPA is not quite as specific. CCPA still takes a bit of a business approach, which is do what you're doing, but tell me, give me some rights and protect it. GDPR is more think before you do. Make sure it meets all these criteria, document everything that you're doing, have someone else check it, and be secure, and tell me what you're doing, and meet this one of six lawful basis and my individual rights. It's much more complex. In CCPA's world, it encourages privacy reviews. There's not a requirement to do so. There are fines that are attached, and so there's certainly fines. I think the places where companies are going to get pushed and encouraged to do it are what we mentioned before with the contracts, where customers are pushing down. And then also from a security standpoint, there's an individual private right of action if there's a data breach and the company was found to be negligent. Okay. So it's not every data breach that might ever exist, but if the company didn't have reasonable security measures. We're a very litigious society here in the United States, which means there are people waiting to pounce and find the data breaches that they can do a class action lawsuit, most likely under CCPA, and then you're going to start seeing some wake-up calls, I think.
Okay, and what about the amount of the fines? It can be pretty high, I guess.
The fines are based on a per record, per incident type situation. The security one that I had just shared, so if you had a data breach and you were found to be negligent, that can be $100 to $750 per incident per record. That can be a lot. You know, if you add it up pretty quick, yeah. There is no cap at the end. GDPR, while 4% of global revenue sounds huge, there's also a cap. Here, there's no potential cap. And then if you have just sort of overall fines to the regulation, they can vary between $2,500 and $7,500, you know, kind of like per incident, per record, but it just depends on the situation.
Understood. Okay, and
yep.
I would also like to ask you, not just related to the CCPA, a bit more on, you know, any particular case that you face that it's interesting to share and that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, so I think the Facebook case most recently is a really fascinating one. So here in the United States, we have the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, and they're the ones that at the federal level, we are really the ones who manage and kind of override and regulate privacy. And some would say their ability to do so is very limited. For a long list of reasons. If we take just the Facebook case, though, however, what's interesting about that is in 2012, the FTC came after Facebook, and there was a settlement. Basically, it's a consent decree. Facebook agrees to do X, Y, and Z. And then we had Cambridge Analytica. The FTC came back through and essentially said, you didn't agree to what you said you were going to do, or you didn't do what you said you were going to. From the 2012, we're going to fine you. And they fined $5 billion. Another interesting fine, and I'll tell you a little bit more under the FTC piece, but the SEC, which is around our public markets, so they're the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, they're really the ones making sure all of our public companies are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're being honest and ethical. They also fined Facebook $100 million over the same issue for not being transparent and honest and ethical and all those things. What's really interesting in the FTC piece is it also has many of the requirements under GDPR, like you need to appoint someone who's going to be focused on privacy. You need to have privacy reviews for every major change or new product that you're going to have. You need to put in place a variety of different safeguards, basically, controls, to make sure that privacy is being considered. And what happens out of that is that's not law. However, it's often been deemed as almost common law, where other companies should look to FTC guidance as to what the FTC expects companies to be doing. So while there's no law that says you have to have a privacy review, there is a little bit under our healthcare laws, but we're going to take that out, just like old-fashioned, normal, not health, not financial, because we're very sectoral based here in the United States. I have to look to the different FTC consent decrees to be able to get a sense of what is expected for this body that might regulate me. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting case, and I hope really sets a good precedent for what companies should be doing.
Definitely, and it gives you a taste of the complexity of this matter and the many issues that are related to it. And yes, Jodi, thank you. I would. We are running out of our time, so I would like to, ask you also on which is your advice for people that want to have business related to privacy and that deals with privacy every day, in particular in the US.
I think it's probably what we're doing for companies who have to comply with any privacy law. Really, it's understand your data. Really help making sure clients know what data they have, how they're using it. And to me, the essential piece is to keep it on an ongoing basis. I often see we have a project, I did it, I checked the box, and I'm done. And that was just the foundation, that was just the beginning. Now is the hard and fun part, to really make sure that privacy is considered part of the fabric of the company, that we make privacy part of the culture. And every time we're creating a new product or we're using a new marketing idea, that we think about how do I integrate that. So as anyone listening, if you're offering advice to your clients, it's really about how can I make sure that the client understands we have to do this on an ongoing basis. And I think that's always tied to understanding what data we have. And after we're doing that, it kind of creates that perpetual cycle.
Yeah, of course. And yes, do you have any prospect on the future of privacy that you would like to?
Well, in the United States, there's a lot of conversation. Will we have 50 different state laws, or will we have a federal law? From a pure guess, I am not a crystal ball, and we have significant political interests over here. So my general answer to will there be a federal law is throw a dart. Because it's literally that subjective and who knows. However, there's a lot of discussion and serious discussion, I think, for the first time about a federal law. It's very complex to do. Obviously, we've seen that in other jurisdictions. It's especially challenging here. We already have sectoral privacy laws. At the state level, we already have about 9 to 10 different kind of copycat CCPA bills that are on the docket. And there are a variety of other states that haven't yet put their law on the docket, but are studying behind the scenes with intense meetings. I do think you'll start to see other states follow suit. California is almost always first in all kinds of topics, whether it be furniture regulation, cancer-causing chemicals, or privacy and security. They're often first in a variety of ways. Other states start to follow. So definitely be on the lookout, I think, for additional states that may be similar or a little bit different than where California is today.
Okay. Great, Jodi. Thank you very much for your very clear explanation. And I really want to thank also all our listeners for joining us today. And I invite them to follow us on our social media and on our webpage, PrivacyRules.com, and also on our YouTube channel, where we will find also this podcast of today. Thank you very much, Jodi, and I hope to see you very soon again.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's great to meet you. Thank you.